I'm Margaret Dalton. I spent 31 years as a flight attendant for a major international carrier. I worked transatlantic routes, Pacific routes, South America. I was wrong. Because right now, in 2026, the rules have changed more than they have at any point since September 11th. And the people who are going to be hurt the most, the people who are going to show up at the airport and be turned away, charged fees they did not expect, confused by technology they have never seen, humiliated at checkpoints they do not understand, are travelers over 65. Nobody is warning them. The airlines are not sending letters. The TSA is not knocking on doors. So I am going to warn you myself, because I spent 3 decades watching what happens when older passengers walk into an airport unprepared. And what I am about to tell you is going to save someone from the worst day of their life. I will get to the rules, but first I need to tell you about my Aunt Patricia, because she is the reason I cannot stay quiet about this. Aunt Pat was 78. She was my mother's older sister, a retired librarian from Rockford, Illinois, a woman who could tell you every character in a Dickens novel, but could not figure out how to update an app on her phone. She was sharp as a tack mentally. Do not confuse what I am about to tell you with someone who had lost her faculties. She had not. She simply lived in a world that moved at a different speed than the one the airport had become. She had been flying the same way for 50 years. You show up, you show your driver's license, you get on the plane. That was flying to Aunt Pat. And nobody, not me, not my mother, not anyone, told her that in 2025, the rules changed. Because I assumed she knew. And you know what they say about assuming. Aunt Pat flew from Rockford to Atlanta in October of 2025 to visit my cousin's new baby. She drove herself to the airport. She had her purse, her rolling bag, a gift-wrapped onesie for the baby, and her Illinois driver's license, the same one she had renewed 3 years earlier. She walked up to the TSA checkpoint like she had done dozens of times before, and the agent looked at her license and said, "Ma'am, this isn't a real ID. I can't let you through." Aunt Pat did not know what a real ID was. She had never heard those words in her life. She looked at her license, her name, her photo, her address, everything correct. And she said, "But this is my license. The state of Illinois gave it to me." The agent pointed to the corner of the card. No gold star. No gold star means it is not Real ID compliant. And as of May 7th, 2025, a non-compliant license will no longer get you through airport security for a domestic flight. That rule had been delayed and delayed for 20 years. Congress passed it in 2005. And then one day it was real. And millions of Americans, especially older Americans who do not spend their lives reading government websites. The agent told her she could use a passport instead. Aunt Pat did not have her passport. It was in a drawer at home. She had not thought to bring it because she was flying to Atlanta, not London. She was flying inside her own country, and she had been doing it with her driver's license since before the TSA existed. She did not make her flight. She drove home. She called my mother crying, not sobbing, not dramatic, just that quiet, steady kind of crying that older women do when they have been humiliated and they are trying to hold it together. She said, "They wouldn't let me on the plane, Marie. I had my license. They said it was wrong." My mother called me. I was sick to my stomach. I had worked in aviation for 33 years, and I had not thought to check my own aunt's ID before she flew. That is my failure. I own it, and I will own it for the rest of my life. Aunt Pat got a real ID the following week. She flew to Atlanta a month later and met the baby. But she lost that day. She lost the confidence she had carried into airports for 50 years. And she told my cousin, "I felt like a fool standing there. Everyone behind me was staring. The young man was kind about it, but I could see the line getting longer because of me." She was not a fool. She was a 78-year-old woman who had done everything right her entire life, and the rules changed around her without anyone making sure she knew. Now here's what has happened since, because it has gotten worse, not better. And I need you to understand what 2026 looks like if you are over 65 and planning to fly. Starting February 1st, 2026, if you show up at a TSA checkpoint without a real ID or another acceptable form of identification, like a passport, you are not simply turned away anymore. Now there is a fee. TSA has rolled out something called Confirm ID. You pay $45, non-refundable, and they attempt to verify your identity through biometric screening. Fingerprints, facial recognition, questions pulled from government databases. The process takes anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. And here's the part that makes my blood run cold. Paying the $45 does not guarantee you get through. If the system cannot confirm your identity, you are denied. You lose the $45, you lose your flight. You stand there at the checkpoint with nothing. And that $45 window only lasts 10 days. So if you are taking a round trip, you might have to pay again on the way back. Imagine being Aunt Pat. Imagine being 78 years old, standing at a kiosk, being asked to look into a camera for a facial scan, being asked security questions from a database you did not know existed, being told it will cost $45 and might not even work. Imagine the line behind you. Imagine the noise, the pressure, the confusion. Now imagine nobody warned you, and that is not the only change. Facial recognition technology, what TSA is calling touchless ID, is expanding to 65 airports by spring of 2026. The idea is that instead of showing your physical ID, a camera scans your face and matches it to your passport photo or your license photo in a government database. They are calling it progress. They are calling it seamless. And for a 30-year-old with a smartphone and a TSA PreCheck membership, maybe it is. But for a 72-year-old who has never enrolled in PreCheck, who does not have the airline app, who does not understand why a camera is pointing at their face at a security checkpoint, it is terrifying. I know it is terrifying because I watched passengers' faces for 33 years. And I know what fear looks like on a person who is too proud to say they are afraid. You have the right to refuse the facial scan. They cannot deny you boarding for opting out. But in practice, and I am telling you this as someone who worked inside the system, opting out means delays, additional screening, and sometimes a confused agent who was not trained on the opt-out procedure. You have rights at the airport, but exercising those rights when you are 75 and exhausted and everyone behind you is sighing, that takes a kind of courage most people do not have. I think about a man I used to see on the Dallas to Miami route, Warren Oakes, 73, a retired high school football coach who flew every Thanksgiving to see his grandchildren. Big man, strong handshake, always wore a windbreaker with his old school's logo on it. Warren flew the same route for 12 years. And then the airline he flew, the one with the open seating he loved, the one where he could just walk on and sit wherever he wanted, changed its policy in January 2026. Assigned seats, boarding groups, a whole new system. Warren showed up like he always did, early, windbreaker, ready to grab his favorite aisle seat near the front, so his bad knee would not have to walk far. And the gate agent told him he had been assigned a middle seat in row 29. He said, "There must be a mistake. I always sit up front." There was no mistake. He had booked basic economy because it was the cheapest fare. And basic economy means last pick. And Warren, this big, proud man who had coached football for 35 years, stood at that gate looking like someone had taken something from him he did not know could be taken. He sat in row 29, middle seat, his knee pressed against the seat in front of him for 3.5 hours. He told me about it. I ran into him in the terminal after, by coincidence, and he remembered me from years of flights. And he said, "Jim, I don't understand the airlines anymore." He said it quietly, like he was embarrassed, like not understanding was his fault. You are watching this, and you are thinking, this will not happen to me. You are thinking that because you are smart, because you have traveled before, because you know your way around. But when was the last time you checked your ID for that gold star? When was the last time you read the fine print on your ticket? Do you know the difference between regular economy and basic economy? Do you know that basic economy on most airlines means no seat selection, no overhead bin, no changes, no refunds? Do you know that if you book through a third-party website looking for the cheapest fare, basic economy is what you are getting? Do you know that the airport you walked through 5 years ago now has cameras scanning your face and kiosks asking for your fingerprints and a $45 penalty for not having the right card in your wallet? You have to know, because nobody is going to tell you. Not the airline, not the government, not the smiling agent at the check-in counter, because there is no agent at the check-in counter anymore. There are kiosks, and the kiosks do not care how old you are. Here is what I am asking you to do. One evening, that is all it takes. Sit down and look at your driver's license. Look for the star. If it is not there, go to your DMV and get a real ID, or make sure you have a valid passport you can bring to the airport. Call your airline, not the website, the actual phone number, and ask what class of ticket you are buying. Ask about seat selection, ask about boarding, ask about any new procedures at the airports you are flying through. And if you have children or grandchildren, if someone younger is listening to this, sit down with your parents, look at their IDs, explain what real ID means, explain what basic economy means, explain that the airport has changed and that it changed fast, and that the people you love deserve to walk in there with the information they need. Be the person who warns them, because the airline will not. And I know that for a fact, because I worked for the airline, and we never did. This channel exists because 33 years gave me more stories than one person should carry. And every one of them taught me the same lesson. The system does not slow down for anyone. It does not pause for confusion. It does not apologize for change. But you can be ready for it. If this helped you, send it to someone who is about to fly. Subscribe if you want to hear more. I am not done talking yet. Aunt Pat made her flight a month late. She met the baby. But she still talks about the day they turned her away, not with anger, with something worse, bewilderment. She still does not understand what she did wrong. Check the star on your license. It takes 10 seconds. 10 seconds could save you from standing where she stood.